What happens when a well-known atheist commentator decides to publicly challenge Karoline Leavitt's faith on national television? The stage was set, the lights were bright, and the cameras were rolling. The energy in the studio was electric, charged with the anticipation of yet another fiery debate. The show had built a reputation for its brutal honesty, where guests were pushed to their limits, and tonight was no exception. Sitting across from each other were two figures who couldn't be more different in ideology. Karoline Leavitt and an outspoken atheist pundit, Lucas Reed, known for his relentless criticism of faith. The debate had been running smoothly, heated yet civil, filled with policy discussions and ideological clashes. But everyone in the room, including Karoline, sensed that Lucas was waiting for the moment to drop the question that he believed would shake her to her core. And then it happened. Lucas leaned forward, a smirk playing on his lips, his fingers interlocked on the table in front of him. His voice was thick with mock curiosity, laced with a tone that suggested he had already won this battle before it had even begun. "Tell me, Karoline," he said, his tone deliberate, dripping with condescension. "You talk a lot about faith, about values, but do you really believe all that? Or is it just a convenient political stance?" The room tensed. The air shifted. Even those who had been casually observing sat up straighter in their seats, sensing the weight of the question. Lucas continued, his smirk widening. "I mean, come on. In today's world, people with real power don't cling to fairy tales, do they?" It was a statement, not a question. A declaration meant to undermine, to diminish. A chess move played with confidence, expecting the opponent to stumble. Karoline didn't flinch. She didn't rush to respond. Instead, she let the silence stretch just long enough to make the room slightly uncomfortable. She tilted her head slightly, studying him as if he were the one on trial. Finally, she spoke, her voice steady. "You seem very sure of yourself." Lucas chuckled, waving a dismissive hand. "That's because I deal in facts, not feelings." Karoline leaned forward, mirroring his posture, her gaze unyielding. "Facts? Let's talk about that." Lucas raised an eyebrow, intrigued. The audience was hooked. The show's producer signaled the camera crew to tighten their focus on her. "You claim that faith is nothing more than a crutch," she continued, her voice measured. "That people who believe in something greater are weak, naive, maybe even ignorant." Lucas nodded, satisfied that she was repeating what he had always argued. "But tell me," Karoline continued, her expression unwavering, "why does my faith bother you so much?" Lucas's smirk faltered. Just slightly, but enough for the audience to notice. He recovered quickly, scoffing. "Bother me? It doesn't bother me. I just think it's unnecessary." Karoline smiled, but there was something sharp in it, something knowing. "Illogical? An illusion for those who can't handle reality?" Lucas shifted in his seat, hesitating. The exact words had been taken right from his mouth before he could even say them. "The problem," she said, "isn't that you don't believe in God. It's that you don't want anyone else to either. You don't just dismiss faith, you resent it, not because you think it's insignificant, but because deep down, you know it isn't. If it were, you wouldn't feel the need to fight it at every turn." Silence. Heavy, thick silence. The other panelists sat frozen. The audience members who had been scrolling through their phones moments earlier were now fully engaged, eyes locked on the exchange unfolding before them. Lucas scoffed again, but this time it was different, more forced. "Oh, come on," he said, shaking his head. "I don't resent faith. I just don't buy into it. I live in reality, in facts, not fairy tales." Karoline didn't blink. "Tell me something, Lucas. Do you love anyone?" Lucas frowned, caught off guard. "What? Do you love anyone?" she repeated, tilting her head slightly. "A parent, a sibling, a friend." Lucas shifted in his chair. "Of course. Prove it." His brow furrowed. "Excuse me?" "Prove it," she repeated. "Not with words, not with memories. Show me the physical, measurable proof of your love. Show me where it exists in a way that no one could ever deny." Lucas opened his mouth, then closed it. A pause stretched between them, the kind of pause that weighs more than words ever could. "That's the thing about faith," Karoline continued, her voice calm but firm. "It's not about what can be seen. It's about what is known. It's about trust, about belief in something greater than yourself. Just like love, just like hope. You can't hold it in your hands, but that doesn't make it any less real. Lucas leaned back in his chair, folding his arms across his chest as if trying to put distance between himself and the conversation. But the shift in his demeanor was undeniable. He wasn't smirking anymore. He wasn't scoffing. He was listening. And so was everyone else. The silence in the studio wasn't the awkward kind that comes from someone struggling to find words. It was something deeper, the kind of silence that comes when an undeniable truth has been spoken. Lucas finally exhaled sharply. "That's a nice sentiment," he muttered, "but faith has led people to believe in all kinds of things. People have been wrong before. Believing in something doesn't make it true." Karoline nodded. "You're absolutely right. But rejecting something just because you can't fully understand it doesn't make it false either." The tension in the studio thickened. She let the weight of her words settle before continuing. "The truth isn't something that changes just because people refuse to see it. And if history has taught us anything, it's that some of the most profound truths, the ones that define who we are, aren't found in equations or measured in labs. They have to be lived." Lucas exhaled sharply, rubbing his temple. He had walked into this debate expecting to dismantle faith, to expose it as weak. But Karoline hadn't given him the reaction he wanted. She hadn't fought back with anger. Instead, she had done something far more powerful. She had forced him to question whether he had ever truly understood faith at all. For the first time in his career, Lucas Reed had nothing to say. And as the camera zoomed in, capturing the stunned expressions in the room, one thing was clear. This debate had just become something much bigger than anyone had anticipated.